Hey, I'm Jay Faze of Rebel.media, and I'm right now here with libertarian YouTube commentator and YouTube skeptic, ThatGuyT. ThatGuyT, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. How about yourself?
I'm going to call you TJ for the rest of the interview, but I'm doing great myself. So the reason why I wanted to conduct this interview particularly is to talk about identitarianism and identity politics and how, in your own words, libertarianism is, quote unquote, losing to nationalism. Is that a fair assessment that libertarianism is losing to nationalism right now?
It's definitely a fair assessment of my opinion. Of course, I've had quite a few libertarians come back at me on that with their own disagreements. But from what I've observed, it seems pretty obvious that nationalism is on the rise and libertarianism is fading into even more obscurity than it already was, which is kind of terrifying.
And so why do you think libertarianism is fading away? And what are the causes of it?
Well, there's a few different causes. One being the fact that it's a very niche marketed ideology. It's very academic focused. It's very philosophically focused. It's basically a cool kids club of intellectuals, and I'm not trying to gas myself up or anything, but it doesn't appeal to the masses. It at least has never tried to, or when it does try to, you see the Gary Johnsons of the world, where you have this grand vision of we're going to appeal to the most basic, boring elements of politics and basically just say we're just like the Democrats, just like the Republicans, except we're kind of in the middle with a little bit of both. And apparently that's the plan to, for victory, which, as you can see in this last election, didn't pan out so well. So libertarians have failed to garner this, imaginary center. And now they're seeing the rise of nationalism as a response to a lot of these issues that people are having in their day-to-day lives, and a lot of concerns that general population have. And they have no response to this other than, unfortunately, screeching, hey, you're literally Hitler.
I mean, the way I see it is that a lot of these people who identify themselves as white nationalists or part of the alt-right would be a libertarian, or they would be conservative if it wasn't for left wing's identity politics and if it wasn't for mass unrestrained immigration. And ideally, they want to preserve their culture, they want to preserve their heritage. And a lot of libertarians, they fall into the trap. I mean, I fell into this trap, where you mischaracterize a group simply because you, logically speaking, are against collectivist ideals.
Yeah, and it's been really has really strongly coincided with the rise of identity politics on the left, which, while annoying, is understandable to an extent because there's been a really strong backlash against identitarianism in general, which I don't really have a problem with. If you want to make an argument against it, that's fine. I think that there are some reasonable arguments against it. I also think there are some reasonable arguments for it in certain extents. Mm-hmm. However, identitarianism, and to approach identitarianism in a way that only sees it as, one extreme or the other, the horseshoe theory. You're either, full-blown crazy SJW or you're full-blown Nazi, I think is a really unfair and uncharitable characterization. There are a lot of libertarians there are a lot of current alt-righters, I should say, who used to be former libertarians. I think even Richard Spencer used to work on the Ron Paul campaign back in, I can't remember the year, back when he
just to add
knew how
to that,
to actually wear a vest.
Just to add to that, political figures like Richard Spencer, they're part of the alt-right. They would be considered, like, ideologically speaking, they would be part of the left wing or they would be part of the right wing. But you never hear Richard Spencer, you never hear Jared Taylor, or all these figures part of the alt-right talk about specific political issues, because to them, the overarching issue that encompasses all of that is racial identity politics. It's not like they're gonna discuss libertarianism and conservatism and liberalism after all that is settled. So what can libertarians gain from the nationalists who have left libertarianism?
One thing that I think libertarians can gain from the nationalists is an understanding of people. That's one thing that you'll hear even in the liberty movement. A criticism of libertarians is that they aren't people oriented. They don't really understand culture. They're either completely isolated in ivory towers, studying historical philosophy and making these philosophical deductions through their whatever insert key liberty waifu here, or they're just completely shattered from reality. They're completely off the grid, in terms of any relation to society, in terms of any relation to any type of collective or any type of civilization aspect. So I think libertarians can learn from nationalists how to appeal to people, what people want, like understanding their desires, understanding how to market to people. And from that, you can get to a point where, you can find a way to make your ideas appeal to people, to make your ideas known to where they'll be receptive of them. To whereas now libertarians simply just they don't understand people. They don't understand what people want in the world. People, especially right now in the current political climate, no one cares about the drone regulations, not in terms of lethal drones, but like drones flying over your house or stuff. No one cares about if this coffee shop over here decided to take Bitcoin. No one's caring about how great Uber is. There are very important cultural issues that people are having right now, and there's very passionate demands that people are espousing and letting you know that, hey, I want this thing serviced. These things are threatening my life. I want these things addressed. And libertarians are just like, whatever. That sounds collectivist. That's gross, But look how great Uber is. Look at this. Yeah. Look at this, regulation in Austin, Texas, and it's in a way of being unpolitically correct, is pretty autistic.
And if they continue this, it will lead to the death of libertarianism. At least to be any sort of cultural influence.
It will, and that's something that I think libertarians should really fear.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, like, subscribe to The Rebel Edge, and please be sure to comment and discuss below on what your opinion is on this topic.